Deputy Eamon Gilmore.
First of all, I want to join with colleagues from all sides in wishing the Minister well in the personal challenge that he is facing, something that I have already done in private. I want to thank all of the members of the House who have contributed to this debate, and in particular my colleague, Finance Spokesperson Deputy Joan Burton, for proposing the motion that there should be a public inquiry into what happened in the banking system. In 10 minutes' time, every member of this House has a decision to make, a choice. It is a choice to vote for the Labour Party motion that there should be a public and open inquiry into what happened in banking, all its aspects, or to accept and settle for the Fianna Fáil amendment to the Labour Party motion, which is that there should be some kind of private, behind closed doors exercise which will be limited in its scope and which may well be restricted in its legal capacity, and which will be no more than an inquiry in name only. Let's be clear about what the Labour Party is proposing. We're proposing that there should be a public inquiry which would be conducted by an Oireachtas committee. That is a committee of the elected representatives of the people, because it is the people whose hard-earned tax money is going to fund the banks. It is the people whose jobs and whose businesses and whose earnings are being sacrificed so that Irish banking can be subsidised by the state. And we are proposing that that Oireachtas committee would be, by legislation, given the power to appoint an investigator to carry out on a professional basis and produce a book of evidence on which appropriate witnesses, including bankers, regulators, public officials and ministers, will be questioned in public about what has happened to the Irish banking system and its consequences for our economy. Now, the government have sought to represent this choice as a choice between what the government is proposing, the Fianna Fáil amendment to the Labour Party motion, and a tribunal of inquiry that would cost a lot of money and that might last forever. That's a false choice, because nobody has proposed, and certainly not the Labour Party, that there should be an inquiry of tribunal. We have proposed that there should be an Oireachtas committee, like the Dirt inquiry, and that inquiry should be carried out expeditiously. Secondly, the government line has been that you can't have the kind of inquiry that is proposed by the Labour Party, because somehow it would be legally impeded from carrying out the type of inquiry we are talking about. And in defence of that, they cite the Abilara judgment. We have addressed that difficulty by proposing a bill which was prepared by Deputy Pat Rabbitte and which was published last week, which would give the Houses of the Oireachtas the power of inquiry that every other parliament that I know of has, and which would give the committee the right to appoint an investigator, and which would delineate the difference between that kind of public inquiry and the kind of liability that would be imposed on people for criminal or for civil purposes. So that the arguments that are being made by the government in opposing the Labour Party motion are false arguments. The real Fianna Fáil position on this motion is that they don't want an inquiry into banking at all. When we first raised this, it was quite clear from what the Taoiseach responded to me before Christmas that they didn't want an inquiry, that they wanted this brushed under the rug. But faced with the fact that the Labour Party had this motion on the order paper for this week, they have cobbled together an amendment, a set of proposals that they are calling an inquiry, and they are spinning it to those who are gullible enough to believe it, that somehow that would be as effective as a public inquiry. It wouldn't be, and I want to say it wouldn't be for the following reasons. Firstly, because what Fianna Fáil are proposing would be unnecessarily long. They're proposing 3 or 4 stages. A report by the Governor of the Central Bank, a preliminary investigation that would be conducted in private, and then a commission of inquiry which would conduct its business in private, and only then would there be a report presented to us. And although there are dates indicated by which various stages of this process would be completed or should be completed, we all know that what has happened in the case of every commission of inquiry that has been appointed to date, that additional time will always be sought if those dates are not met. If you establish a commission of investigation at the end of June, which is what is proposed here, immediately the summer intervenes. It will be the autumn before they start their business, and I think we can safely predict that by the end of 2010, the first report that will come from that Commission of Investigation is a report seeking additional time. Secondly, the role that is being proposed for the Oireachtas is purely minimal and purely superficial. It is at the early stages that the Oireachtas committee or the members of the Oireachtas will be briefed on what the various private investigations and commissions are doing. And then only at the end of the process will the report of that commission be laid before the Oireachtas in the same way as the annual report of a state body would be laid before the Oireachtas, with no commitment that the Oireachtas can do anything about it, and certainly no commitment that the Oireachtas can follow it up by examining those who are brought before it. Thirdly, what is being proposed in this amendment is legally restricted. I heard the Minister for Finance argue that, of course, as the Labour Party has pointed out, that there are certain restrictions on what the Governor of the Central Bank can do and can say. It's quite clear from the Central Bank legislation, section 33 AK, that the Governor of the Central Bank may not comment publicly on matters that are regarded as commercially sensitive involving the regulated institutions. The Minister is right that, of course, the Governor of the Central Bank is not prevented by that provision in the Central Bank Act from making a report, from offering his opinion on the terms of reference, or offering opinion about any matter, or reaching general conclusions about what happened in the banking system. He could probably do that now anyway, without any requirement in this motion. But what he can't do is he cannot comment on the relationship between the central bank and the individual institutions. He can't comment on that, and that is central. Without that kind of relationship being commented upon and being examined, then an inquiry itself would be quite weak and quite worthless. But perhaps the most significant exclusion from what the government and what Fianna Fáil is proposing is the exclusion of their own role in the process. The Minister has said that the purpose of this inquiry, this so-called inquiry that Fianna Fáil are proposing now, is to examine the causes of what happened in the banking system. Deliberately excluded from the whole process is Fianna Fáil's own role in the handling of the banking crisis. What happened in September, the series of meetings that took place with banking institutions which led to the government's decision to bring in a blanket guarantee that has ended up with the taxpayer having, of necessity, to take responsibility and to carry the can for what happened in banking. The decision specifically as to why Anglo-Irish Bank was given a guarantee in circumstances where we now know that Anglo-Irish Bank was a delinquent bank, that it was engaged in irresponsible lending, and that within a matter of a few months it had to be nationalised, having got the guarantee from the state. All of that will be excluded from the terms of this inquiry. Indeed, I would challenge the Minister for Finance to say how you can properly examine the causes of the banking crisis if you cannot examine the management of the crisis by the government and link that in turn, or make connections between that and the causes itself, and particularly the causes insofar as there have been failures in policy. Now, I am not surprised that Fianna Fáil have taken this particular position in relation to this motion, because they don't want, clearly, an inquiry that would at a minimum expose the policy failures of ministers for finance, and in particular the President Taoiseach, and the obligation that would be on them to account for their policy handling and for their management of banking during their term of office. That at least. And at worst, perhaps, the role of Fianna Fáil, pivotal role of Fianna Fáil in the toxic triangle that brought about the banking crisis, the collapse in construction and the consequences for our economy. But what I am surprised and disappointed at is what I am surprised and disappointed at is the position of the Green Party. When I heard over the weekend that the Green Party were going to seek a public open inquiry, I believed them. When I heard
the deputy is concluding. Please allow him to.
When I heard
allow the chair. The chair heard allegations against nobody.
When I heard Senator Boyle outline the Green Party's principles in relation to this, that it would have to be open and public and Oireachtas involvement, I believed him. When I heard that Minister Gormley was going to see the Taoiseach and was going to insist on a public inquiry, I believed him. And I believed him. I believed him because I believed that the Green Party of all parties understand that what has happened in our economy and what has happened in banking is a consequence of bad planning, and the political relationship to bad planning is as a consequence of property speculation and is a consequence of unsustainable practices and unsustainable lending by banking. What I did not expect, and what I am grossly disappointed at, is that the Green Party should have so easily sold the pass. The Green Party have a decision to make tonight. And it is a decision which goes to the heart of everything they have stood for. Matters and issues relating to planning and the sustainability of our economy, principles that the Labour Party shares with them. This decision goes to the heart of everything the Green Party stands for. And if they decide that they are going to stand not with their principles but stand with Fianna Fáil tonight, then they have come to a position. They are not even passengers in this Fianna Fáil government. They are mere hitchhikers who will be ditched out at the first crossroads.